Take a look at that glass of water. Is it half full? Is it half empty? What do you think? Hands up if you think it's half full. Okay, not bad. Some optimists out there. Hands up if you think it's half empty. Good, some pessimists in the audience as well. Okay, well, for me, it's half empty, but it's filling up fast. And I'm going to tell you why. As we sit here, more and more water is going up into the atmosphere as water vapor. And as the atmosphere absorbs more water vapor, it heats up. And as the atmosphere heats up, more water evaporates into the atmosphere. And this cycle continues. In fact, right now, water vapor is the biggest greenhouse gas of them all. And it's a major accelerator of climate change. And that's a big challenge for all of us. But right now, above our heads, are huge atmospheric rivers carrying water across the world and dumping it in parts of the world in extreme rainfall. And that extreme rainfall is a major risk for all of us. You'll remember the impact of Storm Daniel in Libya, in Derna, and in Greece. In fact, in the last 30 years, only 30 years, we've added about 3 to 6% more water to the atmosphere. That's in roughly the span of my short career. That's a huge increase. And that is something to worry about. That is something we should be concerned about. But the question is, are we ready? Are our institutions, government, local, national, or regional, is the science community of which I'm a part, ready? Are you ready to face the future floods, the damaging rainfall, the extremes, the weather extremes? And I don't think so. Right now, I don't think we are. And that's why I think that glass is half empty. That's my pessimistic side. But I'm also an optimist at heart. So I see it filling up. And that actually takes me back to the beginning of my career, about 30 years ago, 1993 or thereabouts. One beautiful, hot August evening, I was sitting in Sudan, wonderful country, currently bedeviled by conflict. But I was sitting in the east of the country, it was getting dark, and I was looking towards what are the Ethiopian highlands. They rise up about 3,000 meters from the plains in East Africa. And at that time of year, you have this most incredible spectacle. It's like a sound and light show from nature, because on top of those Ethiopian highlands are thunderclouds releasing billions and billions of cubic meters of water onto the Ethiopian plateau. And as they release water, huge amounts of energy are released as well. You have these purple flashes of thunder, and it goes on for hours, and I was transfixed watching this spectacle. And what I was watching is essentially the driver of the historic Nile Flood. I don't know how many of you have been to Egypt or Sudan, but the River Nile is the longest river in the world. And I was watching the driver of the largest proportion of it, coming from Ethiopia, that races down across eastern Sudan, reaches Khartoum, it joins the White Nile, and then it flows on up to Egypt, through the Nile Delta, and out into the Mediterranean. So as you splash around out there, around Ibiza, you may actually be splashing around in Ethiopian rainwater as well, who knows. But the incredible thing is, that flood has given us amazing civilizations. It's given us pharaonic civilizations, the Meroitic civilization in Sudan, the Aksumite Empire. It's given incredible civilizations over thousands of years. Right now, it's backed up behind a series of dams, capturing the kinetic energy. That water comes down with an enormous amount of kinetic energy, and that is being turned into hydropower. But before those dams, it gave us these civilizations over millennia. People learned how to deal with the water, how to exploit the silt that's carried down in that great flood, and the fertile alluvial soils that are left behind. The challenge is we don't have millennia, right? We have a few short decades because the change taking place around us is so rapid. Honestly, it is so rapid. But I was introduced as an optimist, and that's why I'm here. There are solutions, there are answers to this situation. And I'm a scientist in the science community. What I'm going to tell you is that we're not the answer, but the answers actually lie with you. And one of the answers I found lies back up the River Nile, back up that Nile Valley, in the Ethiopian highlands, in an amazing country with incredible people who have a capacity to deal with adversity and deal with change. And I found an answer in the resourcefulness and collective action of people coming together as citizen scientists. These are really simple members of the community who've decided they want to do something to change their own lives. They combine science with society. They learn to measure and monitor, to record, but above all, to communicate scientific data to help overcome risks in their daily lives. Now, those risks up there are to do with flooding, and I'll explain why. But they could be here in Ibiza, fire risks, or it could be pollution. It could be any kind of risk, but if we empower ourselves by bringing science into our daily lives, we can help overcome those risks. And that's really important because we don't have a lot of time. Now, when I first landed in Ethiopia, back in '93, I'd been in Sudan, flew into Addis Ababa Airport, Bole Airport. The airport is surrounded by a patchwork, was surrounded by a patchwork of fields in the early 90s, like that. And many of those fields, maybe a half acre each, quarter of a hectare, of rich volcanic soils produced a livelihood for farmers. But now, if you fly into Addis Ababa, those fields have disappeared largely. The city has expanded massively. 6 million people now jostle for space around that area in Addis Ababa, and many people have built their homes adjacent to really tiny mini rivers as part of the Awash Basin next to the Nile that crisscross that landscape. Communities have built dwellings alongside these rivers. Now, these rivers are now subject to extreme rainfall, and that rainfall can turn mini rivers into major floods overnight. So there are parts of Addis Ababa where people are really at risk of extreme rainfall events. And some of those communities, that means people, dwellings, livestock being washed away in a matter of minutes, and quite often at night, because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the rainfall falls during the nighttime. 5 years ago, my colleagues at the International Water Management Institute, Likim Yelish Negusi, Alam Seged Timiru, and Tilai Worku, they decided to set up a citizen science project in Addis Ababa. And that meant working with really the most affected communities, with people who live and work in those communities, bringing them together to measure and monitor stream flow in these kinds of mini rivers that crisscross the city, and to combine that data with rainfall data. And then to do something really important and quite special, to help predict the risk downstream to their own communities, most crucially of all, to communicate in time so people could get out of the way. Because those rivers can turn into major torrents very quickly. So my colleagues working with these citizen scientists did an extraordinary thing, creating a community of citizen scientists in Addis Ababa who could really empower themselves and their communities by combining simple science techniques with their daily lives. So one example, 2 years ago, working with IMI, my organization, working with Addis Ababa University, there was a problem. The main water supply for Addis Ababa is the Legadadi Dam, just upstream of the city. And that dam gets filled up very quickly when there's extreme rainfall. Previously, dam operators had opened the floodgates and let water out, and all sorts of things could happen downstream, exacerbating the challenges these communities felt. But those citizen scientists not only had become scientists with new knowledge and capacities, skills and strengths, but because they'd acquired this, they'd also increased their own status in their communities and, crucially, with the authorities in Addis Ababa. So they worked with the dam operators of Legadadi Dam to improve the system of releasing water to avoid impacts downstream. Doesn't sound like much, right? But that is citizen scientists changing a system and how it works in a city of 6 million people. And that is something quite special, because they've demonstrated something. They've demonstrated that doing something special, unique, collectively, using your individual agency together, you can really change a system. That's an important lesson. And that's why I think that glass is filling up, right? Because I think we can all do that. Whether it's here in Ibiza or London, where I'm from, or anywhere else for that matter, we can all do more by bringing science into our lives and becoming citizen scientists. These 4 citizen scientists from Ethiopia, Felakech, Tigist, Lema, and Ashnafi, are really special people in my estimation. They have really imagined a future that they can take control of and do something about it. And I think that's something we can all try and do together. So I'm asking you here, Ibiza and beyond, think of joining together under this hashtag, a citizen scientist, a global community, an army, if you like, of citizen scientists motivated, equipped with science skills, able to change the environment around us and how our institutions interact and deal with it. Do you know what? Those 4 citizen scientists in Ethiopia, to me, they are role models. They're remarkable people. They don't have many resources, right? They really are limited in the resources they have, but they make the most of what they have. And they combine an enormous self-belief with science. And they have a very important lesson for us all. And that is, they knew if they didn't do it for themselves, no one else would. Thank you.